seems. Anyway, just to finish us off, candles are hot things. We'll hear something about heat, Dave. Climate change is driving animals uphill, it would seem. Now, over the last few years, I remember talking to various scientists who've been doing research on various animal groups, and there's been this idea that with global warming and climate change, certain species which can't tolerate the warmer weather, or pathogens that attack those species, which are flourishing more in the warmer temperatures, are making animals migrate away from the equator to where it's cooler, or go uphill to where it's cooler. But these are just sort of apocryphal stories or isolated cases, so what's been missing until now has been a really good unified view of whether there really is a mass migration taking place of various animal species around the world as things get warmer, because we have seen a global temperature warming signal for a number of decades now. So what scientists have done, this is Chris Thomas, who's a researcher at York University, he's got this published in the journal Science this week. What they've done is to say, OK, let's do a really comprehensive look at this. And they've done a really big study called a meta-analysis. And what this means is they take lots of individual little studies looking at lots of different species and they unite them all under one big study umbrella. And this is a way of ironing out the statistical noise in order to get a clear picture as to what is actually happening. So they take nearly 2,000 animal species and they look at how they have moved, both in terms of their latitude, away to or towards the equator over time, and also in terms of their altitude, whether they've gone uphill or downhill over time. And the result they find is really staggering, because what they find is an average uphill movement of 11 metres per decade, and get this, a distance away from the equator in terms of latitude of 16.9 kilometres every decade. So this is animals changing their average range over this timescale. And while they say that this is interesting, it's also much larger than the previous impacts that have been recorded before. And also, the other interesting thing to come out of this is that not all of the animals actually went with this particular result. There were some that bucked the trend. In fact, 25% of the species either didn't move or went in the opposite direction. Now, it's outside the scope of this study to explain exactly why, but then it's not really surprising, is it? Because if you've got some animals that are actually doing better in warmer conditions, perhaps they will migrate in the opposite direction. Or, if you remove predation pressure, the predators are moving away because they don't like it where it's warmer, it leaves more niches behind for other species to occupy. So it's not surprising really that there are some animals that may not move.
Thanks for taking the time to download this BBC Radio 5 Live podcast. To find other programmes you might be interested in, click bbc.co.uk/5live, where you'll also find our terms of use.